Whether Bitcoin reaches the market capital of gold, becomes a globally recognized store of value, or eventually ends up as the punchline to a very expensive joke, one thing is certain. Understanding how it actually works is essential before forming any opinion about it. Bitcoin has become the fastest growing asset in history to reach $1 trillion market cap. It's also inspired more awkward Thanksgiving dinner arguments than any technology since someone's uncle discovered Facebook. But beyond the price charts, the Reddit threads, and that one guy at every party who won't stop talking about going to the moon, there's a fundamental question worth exploring. What makes Bitcoin different from traditional money, and why do millions of people worldwide consider it valuable? Well, let's break down the technology, the economics, and the real-world implications of Bitcoin in a way that actually makes sense. No prior knowledge required. Tinfoil hat optional. Before we understand Bitcoin, we need to understand money itself. And honestly, when you really think about it, regular money is already pretty weird. Money is essentially a shared delusion, but like a useful delusion we all agreed to participate in. Whether it's metal coins, paper bills, or numbers in a bank account, money only works because we collectively agree it has value. A dollar bill is just a fancy cotton with a dead person's face on it, yet we'll trade actual food for it. That's wild when you think about it. But here's the crucial part. Traditional money requires a trusted third party, like a middleman, which sounds boring until you realize how much power that gives them. When you swipe your credit card at a store, the merchant doesn't personally know you or trust you. For all they know, you're a professional Pop-Tart thief. Like, they trust the bank. The bank acts as a referee, verifying that you actually have the money you claim to have and that you're not just very confident and hoping for the best. The system works remarkably well most of the time, but it has some significant vulnerabilities. There are some problems that Bitcoin is trying to solve, and we're going to go through all of them right here. The first problem that Bitcoin tries to solve is the problem of centralized points of failure, or what hackers love about banks. In 2016, hackers exploited the Bangladesh bank's connection to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and tried to steal about $1 billion. And they got 81 million of it. Okay, so they got a chunk of it. And this was all done before the attack was detected, which, if you're keeping score at home, it's like 81 million. It's a lot of money to lose before someone goes, hey, wait a minute. This wasn't an isolated incident. Banks and financial institutions, like, they lose billions to cyber attacks annually. It's like a very expensive game of whack-a-mole, except for the moles have computer science degrees and they operate from countries with questionable extradition treaties. So why does this keep happening? Well, because traditional banking systems have centralized points of failure. If a hacker gains access to the right system at the right time, they can potentially redirect massive amounts of money. It's like having one really important lock. But if someone picks that lock, they get access to everything. Problem number 2 here is inflation, or the incredible shrinking dollar. And the US dollar, like most modern currencies, it's what's called fiat money. Fiat money isn't backed by gold or any physical commodity. It's backed by government decree and trust in the issuing authority. Essentially, it's valuable because the government said so, and we all shrugged and said, okay, sure. This gives governments and central banks the ability to print more money when they deem it necessary. Well, while this can be useful for managing economic crises, it also means that the purchasing power of each dollar tends to decrease over time. It's like if you had a pizza and then every year someone came by and took like 2 or 3% of your pizza, and after a century, you're just holding a plate and feeling sad. Over the past century, the dollar has lost approximately 97 to 99% of its purchasing power due to inflation. Your great-grandparents could buy a whole house for what you now spend on a used car that smells like cigarettes. Problem number 3, international transfer limitations. Spending money internationally through traditional banking systems can be slow, expensive, and subject to government restrictions. Fees can range from 3 to 10% or more, and transfers can take days to complete. Now think about that. We can send high-definition video of cats playing piano across the world instantly for free, but sending your cousin $50 takes 3 business days and costs $15. Make it make sense. Additionally, governments can freeze or block transactions, which, depending on your perspective, is either an important security measure or Big Brother reaching into your wallet. These aren't necessarily flaws, and there are good reasons for oversight and security, but they do represent limitations that some people find frustrating, especially if you've ever tried to explain to customer service why you're wiring money to a small village in Cambodia. I'm buying Arsenal Pottery Care and not funding international crime syndicate. Enter Bitcoin, a different approach. Bitcoin, created in 2009 by the mysterious pseudonymous Satoshi Nakamoto, who may be one person, a group of people, or possibly 3 raccoons in a trench coat. Nobody knows. It takes a radically different approach to solving these problems. Instead of relying on banks or governments, Bitcoin relies on mathematics, cryptography, and a distributed network of computers run by people who really like computers. It's money for people who trust math more than they trust governments, which, depending on how you did in high school algebra, might be either brilliant or terrifying. How blockchain technology works without making your brain hurt much. The innovation behind Bitcoin is called blockchain technology. I know the word blockchain gets thrown around at tech conferences like glitter at a craft store, but let me explain what it actually means in plain English. Imagine a ledger, a record book of all transactions that isn't kept in one place, but instead it's copied and maintained by thousands of independent computers around the world simultaneously. When someone wants to send Bitcoin, they broadcast this intention to the network. Thousands of computers called nodes, which sounds way cooler than Betty's gaming PC in Oklahoma, independently verify that the sender actually owns the Bitcoin they're trying to send. They haven't already sent that same Bitcoin to someone else, no double dipping, and that the transaction follows all the rules of the Bitcoin protocol. Once verified, the transaction gets bundled with others into a block. This block is then cryptographically linked to all previous blocks, forming a chain, hence blockchain. Revolutionary technology, straightforward naming convention, refreshing really. We're going to explain this using the town square analogy. Think of it like this. Your money is stored in a transparent safe in the town square. Hundreds of people are watching it 24/7, all keeping identical records of exactly how much money is in each person's safe. These people never sleep, never blink, and honestly have nothing better to do than watch your safe. It's like having the world's most dedicated neighborhood watch. And you have a cryptographic key that lets you access your safe. This key is basically an incredibly long password that would take longer than the lifespan of the universe to guess. So don't lose it, because there's no forgot password button. No one's going to give you an email reset link. If someone tried to steal from your safe, they'd have to somehow convince the majority of observers that they have the right to access it. And they'd have to do this while everyone is watching and comparing notes. If even one person's record doesn't match, the system rejects the transaction like a bouncer at an exclusive club. This is why Bitcoin advocates say the protocol has never been successfully hacked in over 15 years of operation. Not because it's impossible in theory, but because the distributed nature of the system makes it extraordinarily difficult in practice. You'd essentially have to hack thousands of computers simultaneously while they're all cross-checking each other. It's like trying to cheat at poker when everyone can see everyone else's cards and they're all taking notes. Important clarification here. The fine print of this whole unhackable argument. While the Bitcoin protocol itself has maintained this security record, not being hacked, Bitcoin exchanges and individual wallets have absolutely been hacked, like a lot. The difference is crucial. The core network remains secure, but the places where people store their Bitcoin can still be vulnerable, kind of like how the Federal Reserve is secure, but your cousin Derek, who keeps his wallet in his unlocked gym locker, is not. Many of these hacks happen because people fell for phishing scams, used terrible passwords, or trusted sketchy exchanges run by someone named Crypto King 420 operating out of their mom's basement. The economics of scarcity, the 21 million limit. Here's where Bitcoin gets interesting from an economic perspective and where the whole digital gold comparison starts to make sense. Unlike fiat currency, which can be printed in unlimited quantities, Bitcoin has a hard cap. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever exist. This limit is written into the code and cannot be changed without consensus from the majority of the network. It's like if Pokemon cards had a hard limit and Nintendo couldn't just print more Charizards whenever they felt like it. Scarcity creates value, assuming anyone actually wants the thing that's scarce. Looking at you, Beanie Babies. How new Bitcoin enters circulation, aka Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin is created through a process called mining, which sounds very industrial and involves pickaxes, but actually involves computers competing to solve incredibly complex mathematical puzzles. It's like a Sudoku competition, but the puzzles are so hard, you need a room full of specialized computers working around the clock, and your electricity bill looks like a phone number. Miners are essentially securing the network while competing for rewards. The first computer to solve the puzzle gets to add the next block to the blockchain and receives a reward in newly created Bitcoin. It's a race, but instead of running shoes, everyone's wearing out graphics cards that cost more than a used car. When Bitcoin launched in 2009, this reward was 50 Bitcoin per block. Mining was so easy, you could do it on a laptop while watching Netflix. People who did this are now either very rich or kicking themselves for reformatting that hard drive in 2011. But Satoshi Nakamoto programmed something called the halving into the system. Approximately every 4 years or every 2,100 blocks, the reward gets cut in half. And from 2009 to 2012, you were getting 50 Bitcoin per block in the good old days. 2012 to 2016, 25 Bitcoin. And 2024 to 2028, 3.125 Bitcoin per block, where we are now. And this will continue until approximately the year 2140, when the last fraction of a Bitcoin will be mined and the total supply reaches 21 million. Mark your calendars, but by then we'll probably have flying cars or at least really good VR, or possibly be living in a post-apocalyptic wasteland where Bitcoin is worthless because no one has electricity. Could go either way. Why does this matter? Well, this creates digital scarcity. In a world where most digital things can be copied infinitely, I see you movie pirates, Bitcoin is designed to be provably scarce. You can copy the code and make it your own cryptocurrency. People do this literally every day. It's called altcoins, and there are thousands of them. But you can't really create more than 21 million Bitcoin within the Bitcoin network. It's like the Mona Lisa. You can make copies. You can make NFTs of it. Please don't. But there's only one original, except in this case, the Mona Lisa is made out of math and exists simultaneously on thousands of computers worldwide. Here's a thought experiment that Bitcoin proponents often cite, usually while their eyes get really wide with excitement. In a traditional inflationary economy, money loses purchasing power over time. A house that cost $20,000 in 1970 might cost $300,000 today. Not because houses got better, have you seen the 1970s architecture? But because dollars got weaker. Each dollar is worth less, so you need more of them to buy the same stuff. In theory, with a fixed supply currency, the opposite should happen. If the amount of goods and services in the world increases, more houses, more cars, more food production, more fidget spinners, for some reason, but the currency supply stays fixed, each unit of currency should be able to buy more over time, not less. Your money would actually appreciate just by sitting there. Wild concept. Here's a real world example. A house worth $300,000 in 2013 would have cost approximately 300 Bitcoin at that time, when Bitcoin was around $1,000. By 2019, that same house might have been valued at around 30 Bitcoin when Bitcoin hit $10,000. Today, it might be closer to 3 or 4 Bitcoin at current prices around $100,000. So if you bought Bitcoin in 2013 and held it, that house got cheaper in Bitcoin terms. Of course, if you sold your Bitcoin in 2014 because you got nervous, well, let's just say you have my condolences. An important note here, this is a backwards looking analysis, not a prediction. Bitcoin's price is extremely volatile and it's had more ups and downs than a yo-yo championship. And past performance doesn't indicate future results. We're going to talk about supply dynamics and cold storage and scarcity. So remember back to when we were talking about Bitcoin exchanges, which may be hacked. Some people prefer to put their Bitcoin in what's called cold storage, which is like a small hard drive or a USB stick that's really good at saving that Bitcoin. Of the approximately 19 to 20 million Bitcoin that have been mined so far, a significant portion is held within this cold storage. It's wallets that are kept offline for security purposes. These are the Bitcoin equivalent of keeping your money under a mattress, except the mattress is a USB drive in a safe deposit box, and you're really, really hoping you remember where you put it. Some estimates suggest that 60 to 70% of all Bitcoin hasn't been moved in over a year. That's a lot of people either playing the long game or forgetting their passwords. Statistically speaking, probably both. Additionally, some Bitcoin is permanently lost. People who forgot their passwords, lost their private keys, threw away hard drives. There's a guy in Wales still trying to excavate a landfill to find his, or passed away without sharing the access information. One estimate suggests that around 3 to 4 million Bitcoin are gone forever. Just poof, gone. Imagine losing something that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars because you thought, hey, I'll remember that password, it's fine. This keeps security experts up at night and gives the rest of us anxiety. These coins are effectively removed from circulation forever, sitting in digital wallets that will never be opened, like little time capsules of regret. This creates an interesting dynamic. If demand for Bitcoin remains stable or increases while the available supply decreases through cold storage, lost coins, and the slowing rate of new issuance, economic theory suggests the price should rise. It's basic supply and demand, except with more crying about lost passwords. But, and this is crucial, this assumes demand continues, which brings us to everyone's favorite part of any Bitcoin discussion, the existential dread about what could go wrong. The real risks here, what could go wrong? Spoiler alert, quite a lot. Let's be completely honest about the potential downsides, because if we've learned anything from history, it's that things that seem too good to be true usually are. Number one is competition, and there can only be one, or can there, problem. Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency, but it's not the only one. There are literally thousands of alternatives. Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, Dogecoin, which started as a joke and is now somehow worth billions, and countless others with names that sound like rejected Star Wars droids. If another cryptocurrency achieves wider adoption or proves technologically superior, Bitcoin's value could decline significantly. It's like being MySpace when Facebook shows up, or being Blockbuster when Netflix arrives, or being like, okay, you get the idea. First doesn't always mean best. Second problem we could have, regulatory risk, or what if the government decides they don't like this? Governments worldwide are still figuring out how to regulate cryptocurrency. Some countries have embraced it, some have banned it, and most are somewhere in the middle going, we'll get back to you on that. Restrictive regulations, though unlikely to eliminate Bitcoin entirely, it's decentralized, remember, could significantly impact its price and usability. If major countries make it illegal or heavily restrict it, that's not great for the investment thesis. It's hard to use your Bitcoin to buy stuff if buying stuff with Bitcoin is illegal. Kind of defeats the purpose. Number 3, technological threats. The quantum computer boogeyman. Quantum computing is often cited as a potential threat to Bitcoin. In theory, a sufficiently powerful quantum computer could break the cryptographic security that protects Bitcoin, which would be very bad. However, quantum computers are nowhere near this capability. We're talking like decades away, minimum. Such a computer would threaten all internet security, not just Bitcoin. Your bank account, your email, and everything would be compromised. The Bitcoin protocol can be upgraded if this becomes a real threat. It's software, not stone tablets. So yeah, it's a risk, but it's more of a something to keep an eye on kind of risk rather than a panic immediately risk. Though if quantum computers do break Bitcoin, we'll probably have bigger problems like all encryption everywhere is broken level problems. Problem number 4, loss of confidence. The emperor's new coins. Bitcoin's value is based on collective belief in its utility and scarcity. If that belief evaporates, so does the value. Unlike stocks backed by companies that make actual stuff, or bonds backed by governments with actual economies, Bitcoin isn't backed by anything except the protocol itself and the network effect. It's valuable because people think it's valuable, and people think it's valuable because other people think it's valuable. This works great until it doesn't, at which point it could collapse faster than a souffle in an earthquake. Problem number 5, volatility, the emotional roller coaster. Bitcoin's price can swing dramatically, 10%, 20%, even 50% or more in relatively short periods. Some people call this exciting. Financial advisors call it a heart attack waiting to happen. And this makes it impractical as day-to-day currency. Imagine if your rent doubled between signing the lease and paying it, and risky as a store of value. Imagine if your savings account randomly lost half its value on a Tuesday. If you're the kind of person who checks their portfolio obsessively and panics when you see red, Bitcoin will age you approximately 10 years for every year you hold it. Problem number 6, total loss, the it could all go to zero scenario. There's a real non-zero possibility that Bitcoin could become worthless. A better technology could replace it. Governments could successfully stamp it out. A critical flaw could be discovered. Aliens could arrive and introduce a galactic currency that makes everything else obsolete. Okay, probably not that last one, but you get the idea. Any money invested in Bitcoin should be money you can afford to lose completely. And I mean completely. Like, if this disappeared tomorrow, I'd be upset, but my life wouldn't be ruined kind of money. Not your rent money, not your emergency fund, not your kid's college fund, not the money you borrowed from questionable people. Don't be that guy. Who's holding Bitcoin and why? Spoiler, it's not just Reddit users. It's worth noting that Bitcoin isn't just held by individual speculators typing when moon in Discord servers at 3 a.m. Major publicly traded companies have added Bitcoin to their balance sheets too, including MicroStrategy, one of the largest corporate holders led by Michael Saylor, who has basically made Bitcoin his entire personality. Tesla, though Elon Musk tweets about Dogecoin more, and which is like a choice. Block, formerly Square. Various other corporations hold this too, and investment funds run by people in suits who presumably did at least some research. And this doesn't validate Bitcoin as risk-free by any means. These companies could all be wrong, but it does indicate that institutional investors see potential value in it, whether as a hedge against inflation, a store of value, or a speculative asset. Or maybe they just have really good marketing departments. Who's to say? The bigger picture here, what Bitcoin represents beyond the memes. Regardless of whether Bitcoin's price goes, whether it hits $1 million per coin or crashes to zero, it has demonstrated something significant, that a decentralized digital currency can function without banks, governments, or any central authority. For some, this represents financial freedom, the ability to store and transfer value without intermediaries, without asking permission, without being told sorry. That transaction looks suspicious. For others, it represents speculation, unnecessary risk, and a solution in search of a problem. We already have money, they say quite reasonably. Why do we need internet money that uses as much electricity as a small country? Both perspectives have merit. This isn't a binary Bitcoin good or Bitcoin bad situation. It's complicated, which is why people write long YouTube scripts about it. My final thoughts, the part where I try to wrap this up. Bitcoin is simultaneously a technological innovation in distributed systems, a speculative financial asset, potential hedge against inflation, a highly volatile and risky investment, an ideological statement about the future of money, a source of endless arguments at dinner parties, possibly the future, possibly a very expensive lesson about tulip mania. Understanding Bitcoin doesn't require you to invest in it. You can think the technology is fascinating while also thinking buying it is a terrible idea. You can appreciate the innovation while being skeptical about the price. These positions aren't contradictory, but in an increasingly digital world, understanding how blockchain technology works and what motivates millions of people to participate in this experiment is valuable knowledge. Even if Bitcoin fails spectacularly, the underlying technology and the questions it raises will influence how we think about money, trust, and decentralized systems for decades to come. Whether Bitcoin ultimately succeeds or fails, it's already succeeded in making us reconsider what money actually is and why we trust it. And that's worth something, even if that something is hard to quantify in dollars or Bitcoin, whatever.